few weeks since we've been together. Last week, I was at my sister's wedding in Milwaukee. And then the week before, I was homesick. Storm was moving in, and between a migraine and arthritis, I could not stand up or grasp anything or even see, and was just not doing very well at all. But now I am back, and I want to talk to you this morning about both today's gospel and the gospel from 2 weeks ago, because the two readings seemingly are in conflict with one another. This week, we have Jesus proclaiming, "Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." And yet, 2 weeks ago, Jesus was telling the disciples, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father and a daughter against her mother." Now, I do not tend to associate swords, family disunity, and conflict with rest and gentleness. Yet, these two sayings were remembered and repeated by early Christians as important to their faith, and both were included in the same narrative by the evangelist Matthew. So we cannot just separate one from the other and say, well, I think Jesus said the former, but the latter, that just sounds too harsh. It sounds like something that the Old Testament God would say, and that Jesus came to replace. God of the New and Old Testament are one and the same. They are the same God, and Jesus of family disunity and conflict, and of the easy yoke and light burden, are also one and the same Jesus. It is a matter of the audience, not God, not Jesus, changing. Times we need to hear about strife, and we need to hear about God siding with us against our enemies. Other times we need to hear about God's healing and compassion. Now, the part where God is condoning murder and violence and genocide, I have to say that is humanity's misinterpretation of God's actions in the world. As we saw in the first reading 2 weeks ago, God's people can, at times, do act in ways that are in conflict with God's design. Abraham sending a woman who was enslaved by him and his wife Sarah out into the wilderness with her toddler son with simply a flask of water to die is not of God. The authors of Genesis tried to paper this over and make it less horrific, what these ancestors in fact and faith had done, and make this into part of God's plan. What they revealed instead was that even though God's people, those whom even Jesus and Paul pointed to as being models of faith, sinned, that is, acted against God's plan, still God found a way, and God acted as God. God was with Hagar and Ishmael and was their God too. God is always with those who are lowly, who are outcast, who are regarded by society as unworthy. God takes the part of those whom humanity treats inhumanely. When we see God in this light, we see how Jesus too can be understood to be consistent even in the midst of seemingly conflicting statements. Jesus offers compassion, mercy, and love for all people. But the people who most need this in the most literal way are those whom society has no compassion, no mercy, no love for. In God's world, in Jesus's world, and in the world we as Christians are called to bring into full being, no one is forgotten. No one is outcast. No one is regarded as being less than fully human, and no one's life is worth more than anyone else's. From the migrant crossing the Mediterranean Sea or the Sichuan Desert to escape starvation, violence, and extreme poverty, to the multimillionaire or billionaire who has money to burn on a poorly conceived journey to the bottom of the sea or into space, all are not just created equal, but remain so throughout their lives and have an equal right to enjoy God's creation in peace, health, respect, and harmony. This is a radical notion. In our modern world, it is a radical notion. In the world of Jesus, it was even more so. And in the world of the authors of Genesis, it was mind-boggling. And yet it is one that even the authors of the Bible sometimes struggled with, because it goes against everything we as humanity have built our societies upon. We lift up the wealthy, strong, and powerful, and look down upon the weak, the poor, and the disenfranchised. And when we live into this new creation, we should expect that it will cause strife. It will cause conflict, even within our own families. It is also a vision of peace and prosperity for all. And we all work together towards the common good. When we do not spend our time complaining about what we think others should be doing, but rather do what each of us can do, we find that scarcity is a myth, and that we all benefit when we all look out for one another. No one is overburdened. The yoke is light. Amen.